Hi, I'm Beth Ann.
What's up? I'm Ayla.
This is Let's Talk BL, a Boys Love podcast. Hey guys, how's it going?
What's up? We are back with another episode, a shorter one, I think, but a very exciting one. Today, we're going to be talking about all of our favorites in the BL world, something that everyone can relate to, and we'll see if we get in any fights about it.
No,
Never. Not us.
We fully appreciate each other's preferences and can understand them even if they're not ours. Obviously, as I'm wearing a Yinwar shirt that Ayla made for us.
I did. I made these shirts because I guess that means we can jump right into what we're talking about today. And let's start with our favorite BL couples in the BL world, our favorite ships, if you will. And so, as I've just been outed, mine is Yinwar. I literally live on that Yinwar agenda at all times. Like, I love them both dearly, truly. And together, I think that they are just magic.
They are.
Part of the reason that I like them so much is I watched Love Mechanics was my first Thai BL that I watched. And I didn't like it the first time I watched it because I watched it out of order.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I showed Ayla Love Mechanics first, and I think it's because I knew that you would just love Yinwar. I
love them.
Precious.
But I did not like Love Mechanics the first time I watched it.
Yeah.
And again, I'm pretty sure that's just because I watched End of Love out of order. That being said, I ran across WXY, which is a series that they did over this past year during COVID, this sort of fun little out of series content that they did together as a part of their couple work. And I came into it in the middle of WXY. I didn't even start with episode 1. I started specifically with the spicy food episode because that's just what popped up. I want to say it's episode 6, but that's just what popped up on my YouTube homepage as a recommended because I had been watching Love Mechanics, and so the algorithm put 2 and 2 together and served me Yinwar WXY.
So good.
And that spicy food episode, just something about it clicked for me. And I love them together. I think they are such fun friends.
Yeah,
and they
such
just
an
are so goofy.
Ship. Yeah, they're
so goofy together.
They're so fun. They're so fun.
And I really relate to the way that they sort of treat each other and the way they talk to each other. There are some moments where Yin will be very I love you so much kind of thing. And War will literally be like, bleh, and do a fake puking or will run away. I just relate to that.
When War initiates his own flirting, he then also
he cringes at himself.
He freaks himself out because a new WXY came on today, right before we recorded.
Yes, special ep.
And they were in their best form. It was amazing.
But so I just really relate to War and the way that he does things and says things. And I think he's just the most delightful little weirdo. So I love Yinwar, but I am always on my War agenda. Pretty much every episode you're going to hear me somehow relate it back to War because it's the only thing I ever think about. Not really, but I love War so deeply. He's so weird. He does the weirdest things and he says the weirdest things and I love it so much. And on top of that, he's beautiful.
He's an unconventional personality for BL World because you feel like he is really truly being himself and doesn't care about.
I love his personality so much. It's the personality for me. It's yes, bless. Also, I mean, he does pottery and plays tennis and what? He's very confusing to me. I love him so much.
He's good.
Anyways, that's me, always on that War agenda. Story of my life. Yinwar life.
Okay, so speaking favorite ships, I feel of course my go-to is a little cliche because they are so popular in BL World, but it's got to be Mugolf. I love their ship content. Tharntype was truly problematic, and I recognize that. And it's probably one of my least favorite shows, but New Golf as a couple is just so fun to watch because
they've got great chemistry together. They really do.
There's this like chemistry and camaraderie that they have where you can tell that like Golf really admires Mew and is just there to be loved on, which both of them deserve to be loved on because they're both
Golf is so sweet. Golf was my first BL love. My first love in my heart. I still love Golf to this day. I think that he reminds me a lot of like a puppy in his personality, because he's just kind of, at least on camera, again, understanding that all of these boys have a public persona and their real life. But on camera, he always reads as just like peppy and happy-go-lucky, and he's just here to have a good time.
Which is right. It's funny in contrast to his character. Because his character is so grumpy.
Type is the grumpiest dude of all time, and it drives me crazy. That's one of the reasons I don't love Tharn Type that much, is because Type honestly, I'll be watching it when I've only watched it once, but when I was watching it, we would be halfway through an episode and I would be thinking to myself, how does this dude have friends? Like, why do people put up with him? He's so grumpy. He's so mean.
Friend who is like the sweetest. Shout out to Mild, who played Techno. And
Techno is an earth angel.
The best friend to the grumpiest boy of all time.
Techno is an earth angel. And, you know, if we're talking about who we love in the BL world, I think people sleep on Mild a little bit 100%. Because Mild is also an earth angel.
Oh, let's talk that. Let's talk favorite like side actors that you, and now Mild did have his own series before Tharn Type, but it didn't kind of go anywhere. Like there are some ships that like kind of begin and end with a show and some that kind of continue on forever. Do you have like a favorite side boy that is like the second lead syndrome, right? Like that they talk about in K-dramas. Do you have a second lead syndrome? Is it Mild?
I think if it depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about a character in a show, I have a million, because I think that the friends in Thai BLs are probably the best part of the show in lots of cases. Yeah. But if we're talking about actors that aren't necessarily always on their couple work, that are just kind of like, yeah, they were a side character, they maybe had a side couple, but in general, they're just sort of like there to have a good time kind of situation. If we're talking about an actor, right, separate from the character that they played.
Yeah, actor.
Interestingly, and this is just a sort of a new development for me. I don't know, this is a hard question. Do you have one?
I think because a lot of times in ships, I don't necessarily cling to a ship if they're not a main ship. And so for me, it was Top Tap as this like, he appears in a ton of other BLs. I'll just be watching and suddenly he appears. Before he was paired with Mike for Together and
Tanhan Chonmati.
Yeah. When he showed up in a few different places, and he is so dynamic. Top Tap, and then Top Tap on Instagram is just a delight.
That's fair. I love Top Tap. I think I don't consider Top Tap as like a side character kind of boy, but the way you explain it, that makes sense. Because for me, Mike Top Tap, for me, they're the number one couple that deserve their own show.
Yeah.
Because
we're going to start a campaign for those who need their own shows, starting with Top Tap and Mike.
Because I adore Mike. So I actually, speaking of Top Tap, I liked Mike before I liked Top Tap because I was introduced to them in Together.
Right.
And Top Tap is just like mean. Like he's just being mean.
Awful. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a protective of older brother, but still.
But in general, his character is being mean to Mike, who I adore because I was introduced to Mike in Theory of Love, and Mike's character in Theory of Love is Bone, who I think is one of the strongest characters in Theory of Love.
Right.
And so I just went into Together already adoring Mike. Like, he could play any character and I would adore him because I thought he did such a good job with Bone. And God, that character just got me. I loved it.
He was good.
So when Top Tap's character was mean to Mike's character in Together, I was like, we got to cut here. I can't handle this.
Working through some things.
And then I got to know Top Tap, and now I adore Top Tap. And I'm actually getting the Top Tap piercing. I'm very excited about it because he's beautiful. I love him. But I think I don't consider Top Tap a side boy, but I guess he is.
Yeah.
I think sort of alternately, maybe mine would be Mike, would be like one of my first number one ones, because I was introduced to Mike outside of the couple of Mike Top Tap.
Right.
So I do consider Mike kind of on the outside, but in reality, I actually think it's Sammy, not a boy.
Yes, right.
But I love her. She's adorable. She plays the best characters. She kills it on social.
Right.
She's funny as all get out, dude.
Her
If you
hosting
watch
on the vlogs, on Wabi Sabi's vlogs, are so fun. I mean, to be a girl in that group of boys, especially opposite Earth, a lot of times you have to have a solid character personality and just go
dude, she's so funny. I, as an Until We Meet Again enthusiast, have watched a lot of just like fan videos from when they were out doing appearances, the whole cast.
Right.
And some of the reactions that she has, like just the faces she pulls, she's so funny. And I think that she's beautiful. And I think she's a great actress. I think she has a beautiful voice. I dig her ship with Yacht. I just like everything about Sammy. So I'm going to go Sammy.
Yeah. I love it. So in that same vein, let's talk favorite BLs. And this is, of course, going to be controversial. And for me, it's really hard because I watch BLs from so many different countries. And to me, you can't compare them. So I kind of compartmentalize South Korean BLs, Taiwanese BLs, and Thailand BLs. I've only watched one Japanese, so I can't speak to Japanese, Chinese as well. So for me, in Thailand, my favorite BL has got to be Lovely Writer. It's the one that I love thus far of all the ones that I've watched because it's the least problematic to me. It's fun. I was so excited for you to watch it because it speaks to a lot of the BL world tropes and it helps you explain like these BL things. And so I'm all for like the meta content where they're like aware
I have a
of
question
their
for
situation.
Yes. Considering the fact that you like the meta and that Lovely Writer is, you have just admitted to the world, is your favorite BL.
Yeah.
What do you think about this controversial ending? Because I actually I didn't get into it, but I aired my opinion about it on a Discord server that we're in. And it was a really interesting conversation. So as somebody who, even with that ending, says it's still your favorite, how do you feel about the ending? We won't spoil the ending. We won't say what it is, but how do you feel about it? Do you accept it? Would you rather it had gone a different way? Did it ruin it for you? What was that like?
I wasn't too invested in it as a show, if that makes sense. As far as like, I didn't need it to end a certain way. I didn't need anything to happen a certain way from the beginning, which you kind of get away from, right? Like the first episode, they are at like an audition and they talk about BL World and kind of how that all plays out. And so, but they kind of divert from that through the rest of the series because the focus is on Jean and Nubsib and their relationship and the writer and the actor. And so you forget that they're a little bit of a show within a show. And I felt like
the ending didn't affect it for you.
No, I felt like the ending kind of like tied it up of like, again, they're doing commentary on BL World. So therefore it's a fun little like wink to we're not taking this seriously. It's a show, which I think, again, is calling out kind of the BL fans to be like, hey, guys, like, let's not take this seriously.
Interesting. I mean, there are some people that are like, that ending ruined it for me. Like,
which is so funny.
I mean, it's a fair perspective because I feel like it was kind of a bait and switch. And so if you were invested like that, it totally makes sense. But I don't know. That's very interesting.
But again, we've talked about this before where I like good escapist entertainment. I'm not betting anything on these shows. I don't
know if it's about like betting that just to play the other side of the field. I think it's more about, you know, as somebody who gets very into media and characters and stories. Like one time I literally cried in the movie theater because they cut my favorite scene out of like that was in a book out of the movie. Like they just didn't even do it. And I cried in the theater. Like that's how invested I get in stories. So I do get it. And so I can see how from that perspective, it's like, wow, after all that, you're just kind of like, you take me out of it, right? It's not an escape anymore because you've taken me out of it. So I do get it.
Yeah. I also think that a lot of times BLs tend to pander to audiences, and not in a negative way. But again, like the demographic that they're trying to get on board with these shows, there are definitely moments where they're like, okay, we know what this person wants to see and we're just going to show it to you. Whereas this show was like, we know what you want to see and we don't care. And I kind of like that. We'll talk more about it when we talk about the show, which I'm super excited about. But so Lovely Writer is my favorite Thai BL. And then, of course, I have like favorites in Taiwan and South Korea.
I feel like if that's the one that came to mind, though, it must be just like your favorite overall. If that's the one that you chose to talk about first.
I'm into it. Okay, what about you?
So my favorite is Until We Meet Again. I think it is a masterpiece. I wasn't expecting it to be... I wasn't expecting to love it as much as I love it. I always sort of expected my favorite BL to always be History Trapped because that was my first one. And I think it has such a strong storyline and I love all of the characters. And then I watched Until We Meet Again. And I think for me, we talked about this on the episode 1.1, the storytelling is a really big part of it.
Right.
And for so many reasons, the story in Until We Meet Again is so strong. I mean, when I was watching it, this will not be a spoiler. I'm not going to say what happens, but if you've watched it, you know, you're going to understand what I'm talking about.
Right.
In the first episode, within 2 minutes of it being on, I was so invested in these characters that I'm like staring at the screen, screaming in my house, no, because I could like tell what was coming. And I'm like about to cry. Like I'm about to cry right now just thinking about it. And the fact that they could do that to me in 2 minutes is astounding. Yeah. And then from there and from there just to take, which is interesting because one of those actors is Cal, who is also in Lovely Writer. But so the other part of it is that it is a kind of complicated storyline and it has the potential to be very, very confusing. But the story was told in such a way that it never once becomes confusing, that you always understand where the lines are. And then another thing that I loved about it is that even though I could kind of tell what was coming around the corner because there are some sort of predefined tropes that come through, I was still surprised in lots of different ways. And there was never a point in the story in the show where I became uninvested, where I got annoyed. So that actually happened to me in Lovely Writer. I got to episode 11 and I was like, oh my God, this is so annoying to me. Yeah, and I almost didn't finish it. But that never happened to me in Until We Meet Again. Truly, that BL affected me so deeply that sometimes I listen to the OST and just like cry in my car. Sometimes I do it just to emotionally hurt myself, like for no other reason. I'm obsessed with every single actor in it. There is not one person in it that I'm like, oh, you can go away.
Yeah.
Love it. It's perfect. It's a masterpiece.
So since we just talked about our favorite BLs, let's go ahead and talk about our series Sunday that we're going to be doing.
Yeah, so very excited to announce Series Sundays. The very first Series Sundays will be Itse, I Told Sunset About You. And so on Series Sundays, they'll be a little shorter, a little more condensed, and we will be talking about just one series from start to finish, chock full of spoilers. If you don't want to be spoiled, watch the season first, watch the Series Sundays first. If you do want to be spoiled because you want to save yourself the emotional turmoil that is, for example, I Told Sunset About You, listen to the series Sundays first, prepare yourself emotionally, and then go watch what we're talking about. But that's coming up this Sunday. Very first one will be I Told Sunset About You. And then you mentioned we're going to be talking about Lovely Writer. And then the next one on deck will be Ingredients, which I'm so stoked to talk about because we haven't, in this episode, we haven't yet talked about our favorite musicians and our favorite OSTs, which I think is a good way to wrap up here at the end of this episode. So I'll start. Jeff, Ingredients, favorite OST, could listen to that on repeat for my whole life, the rest of my life until I die. I think that Jeff, he truly is an angel sent from heaven to bless us with his voice. I believe this. Ridiculous. He has the world's most beautiful voice. He's wonderful. Gorgeous. His character in Ingredients is great. The OST is perfect for the show. And the OST plays such a big part in the show that I just think it's the perfect OST. So that is my favorite BL OST is Jeff for Ingredients.
It's so good. I also really love the OST he just recently did. I'm trying to find it right now. He did it for a series called Love Area. It's one of my favorite Jeff songs too, and OSTs. It's funny because we will share our Spotify playlist with you monthly. We'll switch it up every month with a good amount of songs. And Ayla and I share this playlist, and so we'll add stuff here and there. And I think I was listening to maybe like a Jeff, or wait, did you add it or did I add it? I added it because I was listening to like Jeff on Spotify and it played and I was like, what is this? I had no idea.
So is that your favorite OST or is there? Or
no, that's just Jeff. OST. I don't think I necessarily have a favorite OST. But a song from a series, of course, has got to be Can't Translate from Bilkin from I Told Sunset About You. That song, when he sings it, before I even knew the lyrics, I just get so emotional. I think I cried when I first watched that music video, which the music video is kind of ridiculous because they're like wearing these like high fashion outfits in the streets of Phuket, which is
it's beautiful, amazing. First of all.
It's gorgeous, but like, oh, that song is just, and his voice is incredible.
Bilkin and PB both came out with some great songs for both I Told Sunset About You and I Promised You the Moon. Super strong. I think that's a strong selection. So last but not least, we talked about favorite OST. Who would be your favorite? And he can be an actor and a singer. He could just be a singer. But who would be your favorite like musician in this BL world of ours?
For favorite musician, it's got to be Jeff Satter. I have favorite like kind of one-off songs here and there, but favorite musician that constantly, his voice is so solid. He sings beautifully, whatever song it is. He has an incredible YouTube that he does covers for. I think I've watched his cover for, I think it's called If the World Was Ending, like 100 times. It's so good.
Yeah, Jeff is pretty fantastic. I feel like I can't say Jeff for mine because Jeff is my favorite OST. I feel like I should mix it up. So I mean, I'm scrolling through our playlist now, actually, to decide who my favorite just general musician is.
Now to then say that one of my favorite songs outside, or like I would say like, I guess T-pop songs. Shout out to the SB5 boys. They all have such solid music. One of my favorite is He Drinks You Drunk. When I found that Copter music video and found that song, I was obsessed with it. I listened
Truly,
to it
she was.
on repeat. I love it. I love it.
Truly,
I sent it to like anybody who would listen to me about this song. I was like, let me show you. Everybody that I knew, I was like, this is it.
It's so funny that you say that because I think I'm actually going to pick Baz.
Yeah.
Because like that boy can come out with a jam. Like he hit after hit, dude. And also like he'll go on IG Live and he'll just like be playing little songs and it's adorable.
His voice is pretty solid.
He's adorable. His voice is solid. I truly think he's got like idol charisma. Like he can dance, he can sing, he's got the face on the camera. And Lonely Brain, I think, is one of the most solid just like songs in general.
Yeah.
I loved that song before I even knew who Baz was, like before I even knew his face. I had never seen him in a drama before. I love that song. The music video is something to behold and not in the best way, to be completely honest with you. Although it does have the love of my life, Sweet Pond is in it. But who I actually chatted with to order merch through, and that's going to be a whole other episode.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm going to say Baz.
So good. Baz. I am hopeful that we'll get more music from Star Hunter artists in general. I think they have such a good roster.
Dude, Kimmon's solo stuff is really good too. And you know I love him. You know I love me some Kimmon. So
KimCop, I would love to hear them have a duet. I feel like they've talked about it. They are booked and busy for this year, so I'm excited to see.
You just like Copter.
I just love KimCop in general. So to wrap this all up, we're going to end with what BL content you are looking forward to watching that's on the roster coming up.
Classic me on that war agenda. It's always war. It's always war. Yeah. So Yinwar have a new BL coming out in July. Bless you, Rookie Thailand, for giving us this because there has been drama around the full-length love mechanics and we don't know when that's coming out.
New COVID.
So Rookie Thailand has chosen to bless us all with a new Yinwar drama. It's called The Best Story. It will be coming out in July, which is very soon. So that's super exciting. The poster's awesome. We think it's going to be a throwback situation. There's not a trailer for it yet because they both in the poster are wearing high school uniforms. So they're playing younger, which is really interesting for war. And they have a Walkman, a tape Walkman, like a tape recorder Walkman.
Right.
So yeah, I think it will either be a throwback situation or a time jump. I'm really excited to see what they do with it. Also really excited to see if War is again playing the younger one compared to Yin, who, as we all know, in real life, War is older, Yin is younger. Anyways, I just think it's going to be great. The poster is beautiful, and I'm always on that War agenda, so.
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to cheat and go with two that I'm really looking forward to. The first one is a new KimCop series, which I'm like even more pumped about because the Close Friend episode that they did was incredible. And so I'm really excited for this new series. It's called That's My Candy. And it has such a fun premise. Again, since a lot of BLs are set in like a school setting, it's going to be fun because this will be set in like a work setting and they're like already in a relationship, which is fresh and new for BLs. And it's about this, like, there's a little bit of magic to it where they're in a relationship, they drift apart, and then Kimmon's character, I believe, gets this piece of candy that like helps him go back and maybe like fix some mistakes that he made in their relationship. And it has a fun cast and I'm excited to see that. But I know that one BL that we're both excited about because it has Jeff and gameplay in it as well is KinnPorsche, the series.
I didn't know we could pick two. If I could pick two, I would have picked KinnPorsche. So it's fine. We'll share the second one.
Yes, I'll tie it together. You can talk about this too. The trailer's amazing. The lead couple is like very interesting. It's like an action. It has very trapped feels to it. So
the vibes. Also, the
yes.
outfits that they put Jeff in. Lord have mercy.
So good. I think it's going to be such a good series, which is probably why they're delaying it, because they really want to give the fans.
They want that fan interaction for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Awesome. I think that's it for this episode.
That's it for this episode. We'll see you on Sunday for the very first installment of series Sundays. Definitely talking about I Told Sunset About You, It's A, which is a wild one to start with, but it's where we're starting. I think it's going to be great, especially if you are one of those wild people who likes to be hurt, who's actively watching I Promised You the Moon right now. So we'll see you on Sunday. And thanks for tuning in to another episode of Let's Talk BL.
Bye, y'all.